Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singers, songwriters, and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores the journey, creativity, and inspiration behind the songs. My next guest is well known in the Juno and Grammy arenas. He is a Toronto based musician with East Coast roots and has been selected for commissions in publishing projects on a national scale for the past 20 years. He is also a host of a popular show on a major Toronto-based radio station, which is a departure from music except for the song we are featuring today. So let's spill the tea with John Dawson. Welcome, John.
Yeah, David, how are you? Great to be here.
I'm well. Did you see how I did that?
I was masterful.
In arenas.
Yeah,
Because of what we're going to talk about today.
Layers and layers. And I love the way you said that. I don't know how well known I am in those arenas, but I've worked with several who are well known in those arenas. But maybe we're getting there. Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You've had commissions and you've worked with Juno nominated artists. You've worked with Grammy nominated artists. And there are younger artists out there that say, man, oh man, how do you do that? Like, how do I get those kind of gigs? Now, recognizing you've been in the business for a while, and these things probably don't happen overnight. But what's the process? What was the journey for you to be able to be in those arenas and in the same room with those kind of artists?
Well, I mean, the thing with a lot of those, and they weren't regular things. They were as often happens. It's just laws of probability. You do those gigs enough, you're around the scene enough. In Canada, the musical community, as big as we are, it's a pretty small community. Everybody knows everybody within a couple people, and so it's like, oh, this project's coming up, and they might like the way you play, and they bring you in on it. Half the time, it's just being around when the opportunity comes up for the gig, and then just doing your best not to screw it up. Um, and that's kind of what both of those were. There was some writing involved with one, and some of the projects never materialized beyond the initial phases, but there's been shows. I've done shows with people who have been nominated and things like that. They've all been really just things that come up, and yeah, it's I guess right place, right time, but also just being, I don't know how to put this, being nice to people, and being good at what you do. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, if they'll want to work with people they like to work with. That's all of us as artists.
John, you have another side to you that, other than the song that we're going to feature, really doesn't have a connection to music, which is a show that you do on Saga 960, one of the stations that we broadcast on. And it has to do with sports. So help us understand how you got involved with that and what is, if any, the connection to your music?
Yes, happily. The sport in question is much more entertainment driven than it is sort of traditional sport. It is highly athletic, but it is choreographed, and for the most part, it's predetermined. And of course, I'm referring to professional wrestling. Um, I've been a lifelong fan, right from my youngest years, watching, the Hulk Hogan era of stuff all through my college and university years with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and now having kids in a new era, which is just as exciting as any of those, frankly. So it's one of those, I guess you could say guilty pleasure, but I don't feel too guilty about it. But it's definitely one of those forms of entertainment that everybody has. Some people are going to watch 90 Day Fiance or whatever. You have things you watch that just kind of bring the temperature down. You don't have to fight too hard to figure them out. It's all just right there, and you can just kind of lose yourself in it. And I think for me, it's always been that. I don't watch a lot of stuff that I haven't watched a million times, and wrestling is one of those things. Um, in terms of the connection with music, I've thought about this a lot, especially with this song, because it is inspired by a particular wrestler and a particular part of his journey. Um, but when thinking about the connection between music and wrestling, it really comes down to this. It operates, both operate on a version of conflict. Um, music, it may be more at the level of contrast, but music is propelled forward by opposing elements, major, minor, tempo changes, developments of themes, sections that change. All there are musical devices that propel a musical narrative forward that use a kind of conflict. You have a motif and you have a response to that. You have a counterphrase to that motif that creates the longer musical statements. You've got a constant theme and variation. In wrestling, it's the conflict. It's just very on the surface, and that you have, generally speaking, it's some kind of morality play of the good versus the bad, and some version of it. So it's the storytelling piece is probably what I like the most. And if there isn't a good story there, I tend to lose interest. I don't really need to see a bunch of people flipping around a million times in the air. I like good stories, and there are some wonderful stories being told right now. Very engaging character work, and that is really what's always interested me, is that story end of it.
You went to a great music school, Humber,
Yes, sir.
for guitar.
Hmm.
What was it about going to Humber, rubbing elbows with other musicians, that helped you decide that this is what you wanted to do?
um I think I could say that I sort of knew that's what I wanted to do ahead of Humber, and that I needed Humber to give me the tools to make it happen. It wasn't a discovery I made there. Um, but being there with, I mean, the people I studied with are the best of the best in Canadian jazz. You're talking about Ted Quinlan, Reg Swagger. I mean, Pat LaBarbera was a teacher there. I mean, Don Thompson. It was the absolute upper echelon of Canadian jazz in the Humber faculty. What you would learn from them, I remember Tony Mergel, who actually was the original creator of the Humber program, who retired while I was there. But he would say in our first year theory class, he'd say, this is going to be like a big info dump. You're going to get so much information. You're going to spend the next 20 years figuring it out. And he's 100% correct. I go back to my texts. I have a beautifully curated library of music books I collected over my years at Humber in York, after where I did my music degree. And I'm still going back to stuff I studied then. It changed everything. I think so. Even though I wanted to do it going in, being there, just I'm like, I can't stop now. It's like I just started going down this incredible rabbit hole of things, and it just became, the love was that much deeper, because then I was started to actually be able to play this stuff. That's the other nice thing, is you get better as a writer, you get better as a player, and that opens up new things. So yeah, it absolutely defined everything going forward for me as a musician. It was best years of my life, really.
Now that you have become a sage-like individual in the
Ah,
music
yes.
business,
Awesome.
what what advice do you have for young artists that are just starting out now? Maybe they've been playing for 2 or 3 years, in the basement, banging away on their guitar, and they've decided, now I think I might like to make this a career. So they're in their early teens. I want to make this a career. If they came to you and asked you, Mr. Dawson, what should I do? What advice do you have for me? as a young teen artist that wants to go into this game professionally?
You saying you gotta sign up for lessons with me? Yeah, DawsonMusic.com. Plenty of spots available, kids. Yeah, after the business pitch, I think what I would say, because what I would say to them is get out. Where I live, for example, in the Aurora Newmarket area, we have a beautiful community of musicians, incredibly supportive. Many of us went to Humber together, or came up gigging together, and we are so supportive of each other. But there are open mic nights, open jam nights. There's so many places for young people to come out and meet other musicians. That, I think, would be, get the community around you, get your peer group, because that's how you're gonna network. And that sounds very pragmatic, but that's how you're going to meet that drummer that might call you for something, but how you're going to work with that guitar player who showed you a new way of thinking about something. You're going to grow more than, just burying your head in a bunch of YouTube videos about how to play and make music. Regardless of what AI threatens to do with music, I don't think anything will ever replace the human interactive element of making music together with other humans. I think that's a beautiful thing. So that would 100%. And listen, absorb, study, become humble in the face of music, because it is an endless pursuit. You never, ever, ever master this. Never.
Let's get into one of those songs
All
that
right.
John wrote. This song was released in December of 2024. It features Manny DeGrandis, Anthony Dandella, and Mike Walsum. So let's take a listen to singer-songwriter John Dawson and his song, Under All the Lights.
Under all the lights, with only everyone. Some see a warrior, some a mage, some a rogue that stole 1,000,000 hearts. But I'll see the winner of the game. Before the world, he stands alone. Under all the lights, with only everyone, he's looking for one single face. Without her, he's just song without the sound. He's just words without a page. Before the world, he lets her know. Through all the hard times that have come, through all the aching broken bones, and the feeling that I can't, you were the only one beside me, whispering that I can't. Under all the lights, with only everyone, he feels the weight lifted at last. Bent too long under the burden to become, he puts the future in the past. starts is a secret only they will ever know. Before the world they stand alone. Drop the curtain, hit the lights, they're home.
That was Under All the Lights by John Dawson. John, tell us, what is that song about and what was the inspiration to write it?
Well, first, I do want to make sure, because Anthony D'Angelo and Manny and Mike were on it, but also Steve Piccone played a Nashville high string on that. He did a wonderful job, so I wanted to make sure, said thanks to Steve. Under All the Lights is a song about Cody Rhodes, the son of Dusty Rhodes. When I was taking my children to WrestleMania 40 in April 24, he gave this interview. He was in the main event, and this was a big deal. I mean, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's involved. You know, there's a lot of attention on this event. He wasn't champion, but you know, that was the big, is he going to do it? Is he going to win? All this. And it was such a big talking point. And in one interview, he started talking about his wife and how he liked how she was going to be seen. Because she's featured into his character at times before, and we hadn't seen her much in a while. And he brought her up, and I just remember being really struck by how, you know, the eyes of the world are on him, but his eyes are on her. That just stuck with me. And then we go to the event. The event was wonderful. Cody wins. My kids are in tears. He's their hero. And it was a beautiful event. Massive spectacle. I mean, it's in Lincoln Financial. It's this massive stadium, you know, pyro, lights, just everything you could imagine. I came home, and about a week later, I'd come across the Bruce Springsteen song, "The Wrestler," from the Aronofsky film in 2008. Amazing song. You know, it is Springsteen. And it fits perfectly with Mickey Rourke's character in that film, but it's super depressing. And I was like, it just didn't really fit with the afterglow of what I had experienced. So I actually thought I'd like to try writing a counter narrative to this that shows a different side to this world. Because given the work I've done on the radio show, I've gotten to know many of the young wrestlers working independently, not on TV. These are kids who pack their gear into a car, and some of them not kids, pack their gear into a car and drive to a town and make little to no money and get a little bit of recognition. Like, sounds very familiar.
That sounds very familiar.
Sounds very familiar. And, you know, so there is a hardworking blue collar, just trying to get better at what you do, subtext to all of this. There's a very human story in wrestling. And I wanted to highlight the good stuff that I saw. And so I actually intentionally started thinking about, you know, as you do as a songwriter, you start that kind of brainstorm, like, where do I want to go with this? And just the image of the Under All the Lights, alone with everyone, just him with his wife. And I realized that became the story, that the story became these two alone in front of the world. I loved that image.
John, how do people find out more about you and your music? What's the website? What are the socials and the streaming platforms?
At John Dawson Music, Instagram, X, all there. Streaming platforms, all of them. They're all anywhere you get your music. Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, all there. Yeah.
And if you're a budding young artist and you want some music lessons, johndawsonmusic.com.
That's right. Love it.
Shameless promotion.
Thanks,
on
Dave.
your part, John.
Yeah, that's all me, 100%. Yeah.
We've been in conversation with John Dawson. John, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, David. My pleasure.